next important terminology you must know is called phantom shares or phantom stock. This is going to be one of the documents within the PPMs that basically shows how the other party will get paid. In any obligation or any right to a contract that creates an obligation, there's always an element of consideration that's necessary. Consideration is to give you this, give me this. I agree to it, and it doesn't cheat me. What most people don't know about that portion of consideration when it comes to the advanced version of contract is there are different types of consideration. Phantom share is exactly how it sounds. Shares is basically distribution of something, hence the word share. Phantom, something that doesn't necessarily exist, but it's there by way of an agreement. The summary of phantom share is basically a circumstance whereby someone agrees to be compensated a certain amount, and that certain amount does not actually exist yet, but based on what it is anticipated to be, or based on what they do, which is if they effectively gamble with the worth that you're giving out to them as a rent, then they can take it out. That's called a phantom share. And you will have to create a plan that stipulates the terms and conditions for them. If you go online and you look at phantom stock or phantom share plan, there are many different versions that you will see. And that might give you a general idea of how it works. But the part you will not see online that they will not tell you is this. Phantom shares require the existence of a treasury, which means your trust now should have a trust minute establishing its treasury. Instead of so-and-so or the county or local municipalities are trusts, and they all have treasuries, which is the same thing as a bank account. When your trust creates a trust minute to establish a treasury, see, to establish something and to create something are two different things. In business, you would often hear the word establish. They will use that more often. Establish is just the assertion of something in pen and paper without it actually physically existing. Creation of something is to actually manifest it physically. Those are the two differences, in case you were wondering, especially in the world of business. You would establish a treasury through a trust minute that would hold certain value of things to be given out upon performance. Realistically speaking, without lying to ourselves, how can you ever be a private banker? Or how can you ever engage in private banking without an internal private bank? The United States does it. All other entities do it. It's called Treasury Department. Later to be spoken on that. But think about that as we speak about this when it comes to establishing your own treasury. When you say you're a private banker and you think that 98 number is what makes you a private banker, most people who get the 98 say, I have the private banking EIN. Is that what it is, really? Okay, good. Now tell me, what do you do with that 98 number? And are you at this point clear that the 98 is really not the express trust? You have to know that. If you have a 98 number, it does not make you a private banker. That's yet another filth of a virus that's been placed into people's head by someone who gave it to a lot of people, who passes that baton of trash to others. But ask them, how then do you use it to actually be a private banker or to engage in private banking? All you're going to hear is crickets. Yet they will tell you very quick, I have my private banking EIN. It is an oxymoron. What I'm telling you in this video, what I'm explaining, is what private banking is. And simultaneously, is what 9 out of 10 people will not know that they are seeking. And therefore, they will never ever find it. And that is exactly how it's meant to be. The only way that they would know that they don't know is if something about their spirit is washed out first. Otherwise, when information like this is given to people, they bastardize it. And even now, where I'm going to put in the template of my own trust minute of establishing a treasury, that, by the way, I add as part of the PPMs that the other party can see. And despite me adding that to the website after this video, I know templates pass hands and go to people's hands. I want to give you a caveat, to which only the Patreon members watching this will ever hear. That template of the treasury that I am going to put on the website is only about 70% complete. The subsequent videos that I'll be creating would add the other 30% for you. So if that document ends up in other people's hands who think they're gonna get it and really not fix their own minds first, they're still not gonna get anywhere with it. But think about that question. How can you really engage in private banking if you've yet to establish one privately? Ironically, most people who speak about private banking, they hear and know about trust, but do they correlate that to private banking? Sure they do, but how do they do it? They go ahead and get themselves subrogated and think sharecropping an EIN with IRS, which is an auditing company for someone else's private banking called the Treasury Department of the United States. They think that makes them a private banker. Do you see the oxymoron in what people are doing? Use the IRS properly. But when it comes to private things, that 98 number that you have works, but only to a certain extent. Because at the end of the day, the fact remains that IRS is an auditing company hired by the private banking department of the United States called the Treasury Department. Instead of you establishing yours, you're taking what they've established and you're saying it makes you something. Stop and think about how stupid that actually is, what people are doing. Know how to truly separate public from private. Is there something you can do with that 98 number? Oh yes, there is. It links directly to the fact that you have a foreign trustee though. And in many ways, it links to the fact that you are establishing your own treasury, your own private bank. If you merely have that 98 and you think it is the express trust itself, and you think that 98 itself makes you a private banker, you are already lost in the sauce beyond assistance. And if you just stumble upon this video watching this, and you think you've got the Jew just by saying, oh, I get it, I have to create my treasury for my trust and I'm going to get the template, and you've yet to watch all the other trust videos, or someone shared this video with you and you're watching it, you are, for the lack of a better term, setting yourself up for failure. I'll just put those caveats out there. Maybe 9 out of every 10 people that watch this might not fall into that category. But you, that one man or woman listening to this that fall into that category, I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong. I'm doing this and saying this to let you know that you need to slow down and figure out the core of this. If I mean you harm, I wouldn't even put this caveat here, and you would just keep failing over and over and you would never know why. But I am putting this up as an alarm to say, okay, cool, you're putting in some effort, but know that there's more. If you're going to do it, you might as well do it right. If you fake the funk and straddle the fence, you will get in and alive. At least you can't say someone ever told you. And you would designate that foreign trustee as the treasurer. This is where the significance of that foreign trustee really begins to function. Most people, when they look at the court test and the control test, it makes sense, which it does. But when it comes to the details of how you're going to be using that, here it is. When that trust minute establishes a treasury for the express trust, there has to be a treasurer. The United States has a treasury. Each county, each municipality has a treasury. And with said treasury comes a treasurer. That treasurer still works the trust called the United States. Many are aware that the IRS is foreign to the United States. Because if they weren't, they would have no need to do that registration in Delaware, where a lot of people have those documents, filing document of IRS being established. They have that evidence, but they don't really know why, or how it even pertains to what they do when they say they're engaging in privacy. Certainly you've seen documents flying around showing the incorporation documents of the United States of Delaware, right? I'm sure you probably have seen documents of the IRS incorporation documents. If the United States was never foreign as a trust at North America, it would have no need to incorporate itself in the de jure states. The IRS was in fact part of the government. It would have no need to incorporate itself. Here, let me show you the document I'm talking about. This is part of the incorporation document of IRS, and this is the true business name, Internal Revenue Tax and Audit Service Incorporated, in the state of Delaware. When I say IRS is an audit company, there's a reason why I always say that, because that's exactly what they are. You and I just call them Internal Revenue Service because that's their public face. Their real true private face, based on the private minute created. The true name of the company is Internal Revenue Tax and Audit Service. This is part of their incorporating document. I'm sure you've probably already seen this other documents, one right here. It comes to the United States too, right? Okay. Those documents exist because the Department of Treasury and IRS are in fact foreign. I keep saying, if you really want to learn how trust and contract work, watch how United States move. Watch how banks move, because they do it right. Your trust will have its own treasury, and it will be foreign, because that's how safe harbor works. So all these people going on about fraud being performed by IRS or the Treasury so and so, yet at the same time they're saying they want to go to the Treasury for this and that, but Treasury and IRS are actually foreign. You know, people are confused. I'm really thinking most people who deal with this information, you know, there's some type of mental issue going on that even they have yet to really realize is going on. It's the unknown in their reality. Or they just constantly try to take shortcutting information. They hear something and they just run after it, and it actually makes them sound very dumb in front of someone who knows how these things are structured. And I know I constantly reiterate people on social media and that, because that's where most people get their information from, without any substance or backbone to it. I'm letting you know what the substance and backbone and how it actually works, the thinking behind the thing rather than the thing itself, and then running away with it, thinking it's figured out. Your trust, a lot of people don't know that. Even people who know about, and even people who know of trust, don't even know that trust is supposed to have departments. No different than the United States being a trust has Treasury Department and many other departments. Your trust is meant to have departments. Many don't know that. And as you begin to talk about money and how to actually use the value of that birth certificate beyond speculation, beyond thinking authentication makes you the end all meet all God, and then you just carry some slob of paper in your hand thinking you got to figure it out, but you're really not doing anything. You're getting old every day, but you're not doing anything with that piece of paper. Beyond all that speculation, this is the function of private banking and how you do it. This is how you use trust by way of contract law. Your trust is meant to have its own department. If you are serious about that birth certificate thing that everyone speculates about, if your trust doesn't have a Treasury Department, you're still, for lack of a better term, you're doing nothing. When it comes to handling monies or the value of it or the interest thereof, whatever department handles it must always be foreign. If the United States, which is a trust, who is arguably one of the most powerful body politics in today's world, not the most, but one of them, if you were to count on your fingers, the United States Trust is one of the most powerful. If they know about that and creates IRS as a foreign entity and creates the Treasury as a department under that trust, and have a foreign entity which activates a safe harbor, if they know that, why aren't you the one who says you know about trust? Why don't you function the same way? Well, the reason is because most people don't read trust or contract law. And when they do, they don't connect the dots. They know a lot of information about one thing being this or that, but they don't necessarily connect it as to how they can use it in their own affairs. They just intellectually masturbate. You don't do that. Actually begin to apply these things. Only then can anyone, on the other hand, take you serious. What people don't realize about trust is, after you designate certain parties as trustees, beneficiaries, so and so, what you are then supposed to do is to now take those parties called trustees and foreign trustees and put them into internal roles to play. Those roles in a declaration of trust or the certification of trust are just the roles that outside parties are meant to see. Outside parties that are not engaging in private contracts with the trust. It's none of their business. When it comes to public interface, those are the general roles that people usually hear. Trustees, beneficiaries, grantor. Some don't even know what a trust protector is. But the private role of a trust are what you will hear when you hear the term treasury, the treasurer. Those are private roles to trust. Very important for you to realize, because when it comes to handling the monetary value of any given trust, those private roles will be the one executing it. Because when it comes to handling the monetary value of any given trust, those private roles will be the one executing it. Because when it comes to handling the monetary value of any given trust, those private roles will be the one executing it. Very important for you to know. Again, we create a trust minute establishing the existence of a treasury for the trust. Now let's pause here for a moment. Have you ever heard of this thing called a TD account, Treasury Direct Account? Right. Well, let me tell you two things regarding this. Are you aware that before you even do that, you need to have a treasury for your own trust? Did you know that? That Treasury Direct Account is supposed to be an account that you create with a third party that's supposed to directly correlate with your treasury. It's not called TDA for any reason. People don't know that. People are just scattered brain everywhere. The second thing that I want to bring your attention to is this. When you create TDAs, were you also aware that there are different types of those accounts? And depending on what stage of development or what you want to do with that birth certificate, based on how you're set up, will determine the tier of account that you create. Those TDA people create online, those are like free trial starter packs. You know how you go to a website and they'll give you a free trial period and whatnot? And then if it's not based on period for the free trial, they just give you limited access and limited options. That's what people do online. The real TDA that you will create to actually get into the business of things as banking privately, you are going to get someone on the inside to open that for you once you have everything structured properly. And you have to know what the hell you're talking about, because they're going to talk to you in a conversational tone and ask you what you want. If you don't know, then how would you even open a TDA that's appropriate for the intent? We'll just say that, and let's keep moving on. And the treasurer, meaning the holder of that department, under the trust called Treasury. The department, the holder of it as a treasurer, will be the foreign trustee. This is where you will hear a lot of people say IRS is foreign from the United States. That IRS is not part of the government. Of course, they're right. IRS is not part of the United States. IRS is foreign to the United States. And guess what? IRS plays the same role as the Treasury, holds the same power as the Treasury. And even more, it is an agency of the United States and holds the power and enforceability when it comes to certain things with money or the currency of the United States called the dollar, despite it being foreign to the United States and North America. The same exact thing is done here with your foreign trustee and the treasury of your trust. I hope you see what's going on here. These are the advanced ways of trusts and contract. These are the advanced ways that no one will ever know or tell you. With all these people speaking of birth certificate authentication, this is the things that they would never know, but is required to make that whole thing everyone is chasing after in order to make it work. Even the one that know about express trust and go on about it don't know this. These are the sensitive things that the few people that I know that know would never, ever, ever speak to anyone about. Again, I started this video with that introduction that was about 15 to 20 minutes long. You might have thought that was a long introduction and unnecessary. But if you know the value of these things that I'm explaining to you and showing you, you will see the importance of sitting back and listening to that introduction. Because that's the core of what will make this work for you, believe or not. No matter how excited you are that you're learning this, or you might assume that you have it all figured out just because you learned these few things, slow down. Because at some point, what you've just learned now, you didn't know it. And know that there's more like it that's far more powerful that you must know. These things are no different than the first moment you heard about trust. Think back at it. That first day or that first moment where you heard this thing about trust. And you started to wonder, okay, how does it work? What's a grantor? What's a trustee? What's a beneficiary? That's exactly what these words that we're explaining, like phantom stock, phantom shares, and other intricacies of trust, and the reality of words that you are readily aware of, like treasury, that you did not know what it really means, that you did not know how it correlates to what you already have or what you already know called trust. Very, very important. And so many other words. Once you've established that treasury, phantom stocks always revert back to the treasury if the one it's supposed to go to does not perform. And that is one of the significance of creating, of establishing a treasury for the express trust. What is a phantom stock plan? So at the beginning is always telling you it's a plan. It's an anticipated thing, because based on the nature of phantom stocks or phantom shares, in of itself, it is a form of value, monetary value, that's strictly based on anticipation. Therefore, a plan is necessary. This phantom stock plan is part of the documents that make up the private placement memorandum. The phantom stock plan is a deferred compensation plan that awards the employee a unit measured by the value of the share of a company's common stock. In the case of a limited liability company, by the value of the LLC unit. The employee in this case would be those people that will be coming to you to gamble using the value that you're going to be renting to them. The unit here is the trust certificate unit that you'll be issuing out as a form of phantom stock based on how well they gamble with it. Hence the word deferred. Some other cases, when you look at phantom stock in financial dictionary, they would use the term appreciate, which is the same thing, meaning something that increases in value over time. However, unlike actual stock, the word does not confer equity ownership in the company. However, unlike actual stock, the award does not confer equity ownership in the company. This is the reason why phantom share or phantom stock is the medium you want to compensate those companies that will be coming to you to use the value of that birth certificate, to which they'll be giving you a cash flow, a dividend, a royalty. The way you want to compensate them is through phantom stock, because it does not relinquish equitable ownership. And it does not require you to immediately give a lump sum out of your pocket as a loss, but mostly it's deferred, or it's based on how well they perform with it. Do you see what's going on here? However, unlike actual stock, the award does not confer equity ownership in the company. In other words, no actual stock is ever awarded to the employee under a phantom stock plan. No actual stock. When you see this word stock, I don't think people know what this word actually means. You've heard of it a lot, haven't you? You hear a lot of people throw it around. What are stocks? A stock, also known as equity. Do you know the word stock actually means equity? You didn't? There it is right there in front of you. People who speak of the birth certificate, when they hear the word stock, they think it's just some day trader stuff. Or it's just some stuff those fraudulent corporations do. I just shake my head when these people go on and I'm telling you, man, if you want to be amused, go on these social media groups. Just read what these people are saying. And it just reveals the fact that most of these people are misleading one another. The one that doesn't know is leading the one that doesn't know. And the new ones coming in that wants to know are being led by the ones that don't know. And you realize, whoa, most of these people that speak about the birth certificate, status, secure party, most of them are guaranteed to fail at whatever it is they say they're trying to do. And that's not even considering the fact that they don't even know jack about legality, law-related things. They don't even know any of these, let alone spiritual things. Not spiritual by just throwing that word out there to get the sensation of being special. Spiritual in the fact that what we've been showing in the arts and crafts video, spiritual in the sense that you can actually control reality through similitude of work. These people are so far out of it, and they don't even realize it. They don't know that they don't know. A stock, also known as equity. Stock is simply equity. A stock, also known as equity, is a security that represents the ownership of a fraction of the issuing corporation. Units, like trust certificate units, of stocks are called shares, like phantom shares. The first sentence of what a stock is exactly what we spoke of in the first, second, third, and fourth part of the video relating to the Securities Act and the Investments Act. Of 1933. Units of stocks are called shares, which entitles the owner to a proportion of the corporation's asset, in this case it's your trust, and profits equal to how much stock, aka how much equity they own. Stock is only based on entitlement to ownership, based on the assets, and in this case, the profit, equal to how much stock they own. In this case, they're not owning anything because one, you're renting it out under very fixed condition, and two, the way that they're getting compensated is based on something called phantom shares. Which brings us back to this, the definition of phantom share or phantom stock. This word phantom stock uses the term stock. Stock just means equity. In case you did not know, there it is. Phantom, I assume you know what it means. And if you didn't, based on the definition of the terminology itself, lets you know that it's not really that anything is given to them. It's based on deferred compensation, based on anticipation of something on their end, to which you be using to issue their certificate units in equal amount, as we've read in the definition of stock. Pay attention here. Unlike actual stock, meaning phantom stock is different from actual stock, which even people in the business world don't even know about phantom stocks or phantom shares. Remember, stock just means equity, and equity is based on ownership interest, to which you can distribute through something called units. And when you distribute it, it's called shares. And oftentimes you'll find that this word stock is used interchangeably with the word shares. That's why you were hearing me say phantom shares. Unlike actual stock, the award does not confer equity ownership in the company. When you award someone something, aka in this case the phantom share or phantom stock, you're not giving them equitable ownership in that birth certificate, because that's the only thing that gives you the ability to be in a position for them to be coming to you in the first place. So why would you want to give that out? Right, you're not doing that. In other words, no actual stock is ever awarded to the employee under the phantom stock plan. Instead, no actual stock is ever awarded to the employee under phantom stock plan. Why? Well, they tell you. Instead, the employee, aka the people that will be coming to you to use the value of that birth certificate that you have equitable interest in, they will now become the employee. They are granted a number of phantom stock units, and the plan provides that each phantom stock unit is equal in value to one share of common stock. The common stock will be the value that they put in a forefront in the market that day traders will be trading on, or that other big entities that use high frequency trading will be traded on. That's the common stock, which is the public face. The phantom stock is the private version, yet does not relinquish equitable ownership. If you have to listen to that again, please do. There are many people that what I've just explained in the past few minutes from the beginning of this video is so far off away from what they can possibly believe exists in reality that it's either they just will not get it, or they just will refuse to believe such a thing exists. And to that, I am very happy those type of people exist. Because in merely listening to the information itself, they, by their own thoughts and effort, will wane themselves from the information, which will leave more room for preservation of the integrity of these type of information. Because this is not meant for everyone. And the ones it's not meant for, they would never get it. And if they have the possibility of getting it, they will choose to not get it because they refuse to accept that whole trash of existence they call secure party, and that whole chasing their tail, They will refuse to accept that reality is not going to get them anywhere, and that there's actually something beyond that. They will refuse the possibility that someone actually exists that knows how to functionally do these things. That they've been reading billions of pages of PDFs and they've never figured anything out all these years. Some people will tell you, I've been studying this for 7-10 years. Then when you listen to what comes out of their mouth, they're regurgitating some crap for some redemption manual or some passing the buck. And then you ask them some basic functional things. They don't even know about it. Ask some of these secure party creditors what a phantom stock is when it comes to trusts. When it comes to using the worth of that birth certificate that they purport to be secure party, if they even know that's what it is. They know nothing of what founder's share is. They know nothing of what phantom share is. They know nothing of any of the content that we've been speaking of in all these videos relating to the birth certificate and its use. It is extremely amazing. I urge you listening to this to not be stuck in that small paradigm of a box of reality. Learn, grow, really do business. The only way you can do business is to know how it works. The only way it's like using a trust. If you don't know the terminologies to it, how would you even know how it works? It's like speaking a language, English. If you don't know the words and the meaning, how would you know how to combine it and put it to use? It's no different here. 2, why might a company want to issue phantom equity instead of actual equity? Phantom equity does not have some of the drawbacks associated with providing actual equity. Situations in which a company may not want to issue actual equity include: a foreign parent may wish to award a phantom stock unit to executive employees of a U.S. subsidiary. To avoid the complication of selling stocks on a foreign exchange. A U.S. parent might wish to incentivize an executive employee, which the second part does not apply to you. Equity grants may give rise to voting rights to unforeseen minority rights under state laws. Yep, this is one of the reasons why you want to do a phantom share, to prevent this. Remember, in part 3 and 4 of the video regarding Securities and Investment Act of 1933, we speak about the scrutinies of state law and the fact that the federal exemption is a way out. When you begin to operate even under that exemption, the rights and obligation of the contract and the language of it must match the intent of it. So one thing that I noticed in this stage of my development was some people that I was studying this level of things with, they knew about the exemption also and all that, but they did not know the language that goes with it in the contract. That is how some of them died in the middle of the road, like the smoke just evaporated in the middle of the air. These small things that I'm telling you now are the big difference between those who stay stagnant and those who don't. Believe it or not, everything we've just been speaking about in regards to birth certificate, in the video regarding the Section 506 exemption, all those are just introductory. And this part where it says that a U.S. subsidiary to avoid complication, in this part that refers to U.S. subsidiary, go back to the portion of the video that explains takeover. Go back to the portion of the video that explains Form 3114. There's no need repeating that here again. How does a phantom stock plan work? A company, in this case your trust, can grant an employee, in this case the people coming to use the monetary value of their birth certificate, a company can grant an employee a designated number, meaning it's very fixed. When you read in definitions and understanding of business things, they will use very brief, short words. It's up to you to pay attention to it. A company can grant an employee a designated number of phantom stock units or percentage interest in the company's value or a percentage interest in the company's value. At this point, since I've repeated it so much, I trust you know what this company's value is. And I trust you know what the designated number is. A company can grant an employee a designated number of phantom stock units or a percentage interest in the company's value pursuant to a prescribed valuation method. Remember earlier we were speaking about valuation? Right. This can be done once or multiple times. Remember I also told you there's rules to money and the things I was showing earlier when it comes to those rules and the valuation is part of rules of money. That valuation is literally the process of you creating money, believe it or not. One thing people don't know about Federal Reserve note or the mints that mints coins is they also go through a process of valuation to create each of those coins or each of those bills. You are doing that privately. And through that, you're taking the value, equitable value that you have, and you're designating the fixed monetary value for the renters of that equitable value to use under the condition that they will be compensated on phantom stock based on the actual stock, which is the face of what they're putting and using publicly. In truth, it's really not that complicated when you think about it, but the mind can make it complex, especially if this is your first time hearing it. The phantom stock plan should include the number of phantom stock units or the participation percentage interest to be granted to the employees. At this point, I assume you know what the participation percentage is. If not, then go back to the second, third, and fourth part of the video regarding Securities Act of 1933. And it gives you an example. For example, the company could grant the employee a 5% interest initially and increase the interest to 10% after the employees complete 5 years of service. It gives you this example to know that certain things would happen after an anticipated time period in the future. Hence, phantom. In your case, you're not increasing any value of anything. You're simply saying whatever and however well you use this thing based on actual stock, which is you using it publicly through the IPO that you do, aka, again, actual stock. Based on that, you get a certain percentage from it. And then whatever you made from that actual stock, you bring it back to me as a form of equity. It's a very simple equation when you really think about it. It's going to keep being repeated until you really get it. Because repetition is how the human mind really gets information. Now, we already know there are many things you're doing to not even qualify for taxation. When it comes to phantom stocks or phantom shares, how does it relate to taxes? Well, it's not an income to you, it's income to them. But even they are exempt from taxation. Phantom stock plans are deferred compensation plans and as such must be designed and documented to conform to the requirement of section 409A. Does this 409A rings a bell? Remember we went over 409A when it comes to valuation. Yep. See how it all connects? For income tax purposes, if the plan is compliant with section 409A, which by default it is, the deferred compensation attributable to the phantom stock will not be subject to income taxation to the employee until it is actually paid to and received by the employee. So it's not even taxable. But when they do actually receive it, they have a way that they receive it based on their safe harbor. So ultimately, it's still not taxable. And if a scrutiny of income tax exists with it, it nonetheless is theirs, not your trust. Because you are not the one making the phantom share. They are. Therefore, any existence of scrutiny is actually on them, but they know how to take care of themselves. Well, what does LexisNexis has to say about phantom shares? Phantom stock plan, in parentheses, private company. The value of a specific number of shares of the company. Alternatively, a phantom stock plan can be designed so that the value of the award is based on the appreciation. There goes that word appreciation. Remember I told you appreciation is another word they use for deferred. And value of the company's stock, similar to a stock option or stock appreciation right. This form contains alternate clauses. Clauses, remember as we went over in the past, are just portions and sections that can be like 2-3 words or a sentence or a paragraph, asserting a specific right or obligation within a contract. In this case, trust will be the one drafting it. This form contains alternate clauses so that it can be used for full value award plan or an appreciation value award plan. For private companies, a key advantage of granting cash settled phantom stock rather than traditional equity award that includes the transfer of shares, such as option or restricted stock, is that it allows companies to reward and incentivize service providers without using actual illiquid shares, meaning you compensate them for what they're doing without necessarily first putting money out of your pocket. Simple as that. And even if you are to put money out of your pocket, it's going to be based on what they're making. It's a cold game. And ultimately, nothing leaves you, but cash flow comes to you. But moving on. Other terms you've probably heard before that may ring a bell, but you actually need to know it beyond it ringing a bell includes the term S&P 500. Have you heard of it before? Now, do you know what it means? Whether you do, whether you don't, here's a simple summary of what S&P 500 means. S&P 500 are the top 500 companies that have the strongest economic power, where despite economic downfall, they remain consistent. This is where index fund traders focus on so that their monies don't get wasted. Remember, traders are the people who accept the playing field created by the investors. Investors are the ones that bring value to the playing field based on their equitable interests. So going back to S&P. In case anyone ever asks you in the future what is the simple definition of a trader and an investor, there it is right there. But going back to S&P 500. All you have to do is then follow the trail of the S&P 500 companies. You as a sophisticated investor, seek after these same companies as your target market. In other words, the people that you're going to be basically putting a market to say, hey, come, I have something of value that you can use, will be S&P 500 companies. Why? Because they are economic proof. No matter how bad things are going, they will always make money and they will always succeed in the market. Simple as that. The difference between you and a trader when it comes to S&P 500 is that traders bet on S&P 500 companies as a sector of the economy. Traders don't look at each companies under the 500 list and bet monies. They just bet on S&P as a sector itself. Meaning there are 500 companies under S&P 500. Each of those individual 500 companies, traders don't bet on them. They bet on S&P 500 as almost like a unit that can be traded on the market. That's how day traders do it. You, on the other hand, you are looking at those list of 500 companies and you are putting them to use. What that means is if you put 5 of those 500 lists to use, the fact that traders trade on all 500 as a sector means no matter which one you choose, you're guaranteed to succeed. What that means is if you put 5 of those 500 lists to use, the fact that traders trade on all 500 as a sector means no matter which one you choose, you're guaranteed to succeed. What that means is if you put 5 of those 500 lists to use. The fact that traders trade on all 500 as a sector means no matter which one you choose, you're guaranteed to succeed. What that means is if you put 5 of those 500 lists to use, the fact that traders trade on all 500 as a sector means no matter which one you choose, you're guaranteed to succeed. What that means is if you put 5 of those 500 lists to use, the fact that traders trade on all 500 as a sector means no matter which one you choose, you're guaranteed to succeed. And that's outside of the consideration that these 500 companies naturally always win in a stock market regardless of what's going on, because these are the companies that use the high frequency trading. Do you see what's going on here? I hope you do. You, as an investor, will actually look into the companies, pick and choose and market to them. The good part is you have a large option to choose from. I guarantee you, by the time you get to the 50th to 125th company, one of them will say, yep, let's do it. S&P 500 is a type of index fund. When you hear people use the term index trading or index fund, know that they're referring to the safe way of being a day trader, which almost guarantees the trader's ability to make money. Then there are growth index and other index from international communities based on what type of products they import and export. So that's the summary of the S&P 500 company and what you'll be doing with them and how you'll be interfacing with them. But now let's read the formality of it. The Standard & Poor's 500, or simply S&P 500, is a stock market index tracking the stock performance of 500 of the largest companies listed in stock exchange in the United States. It is one of the most commonly followed equity indices, which is plural for index. As of December 31st, 2020, more than 5.4 trillion was invested in assets tied to the performance of the index. Man. You think you put 10, 50 billion as a lien against the birth certificate that you're not using as an equity? Right, that's nothing. The S&P 500 index is a free float weighted capitalization weight index. As of August 31st, 2022, what this means is that S&P 500 is literally a conglomerate of 500 companies that basically run the entire market. That's what this short, convoluted sentence means. As of August 31st, 2022, the 9 largest companies in a list of S&P 500 companies, now the 9 largest within that group, within that sector itself, account for 27.8% of the market capitalization of the index and were, in order of highest to lowest, Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, Tesla, so and so, so and so. Do you see where this is going? Right. Personally, I wouldn't use Apple or Microsoft because they're the ones who are really killing people's privacy in today's world. So you have to use whatever power you have with great responsibility, and don't do business with certain type of people is all I'm saying. The components that have increased their dividends in 25 consecutive years are known as S&P 500 dividend aristocrats.